What's up, YouTube? So it has been a hot minute since I have put out any content, and I apologize for that. I went out to visit JP out in California, and then when I came back home, as to be expected, anytime you take a break, go on vacation, anything like that, got bombarded with work. So haven't really had a lot of time to make a whole lot of videos, at least nothing that was interesting enough to warrant a video. We're kind of on a standstill on Newman's Common Rail Swap First Gen. We're waiting on some parts for it before I can really put out a video worth watching on that one. And just with the overwhelming amount of work and trying to get ready for UCC this coming weekend, actually in 2 days, there's just been no time for me to sit down and make a video. So I wanted to make a more of a cool video of, me showing you guys all of the steps of what it takes to get my truck ready, or anybody's truck really, honestly, ready to go to the track, but the steps of what I do and how everything has to be. But I just did not have time to do all that, but I did film a lot of the stuff that I was doing. I just didn't have time to sit down and talk with you guys about it. So the next time we take it out, we'll definitely do a more of a go over this and that kind of video on it. But essentially, taking it out for the first time of the year, I like to do what a lot of people call a nut and bolt. And I nut and bolt the whole thing, so that means I put a wrench on everything I can put a wrench on. 4-link bolts, wishbone bolts, drive shaft U-joint caps, anything that, steering related, anything that could cause a problem that would be catastrophic, I like to go over just for the first time of the year, so that way I know everything is good. Anytime you change your setup, even if it's just minute, like even if you just change your intercooler piping, or you just put a little bit more nitrous in it, or you just change your spool up tune up, you really need to go over everything and make sure that you have a good baseline. Do multiple spool ups to make sure that you're in the ballpark of where you were the last time you had it out. You could have something spooling up perfect and at the right RPM and everything that you want to leave the line at, and you could do one little fuel quantity change or one little nitrous change, or even different intercooler piping if you're making stuff shorter or longer. It'll change the way it reacts. So you need to really spend some time going over your setup and making sure that everything is in the ballpark before you go to the racetrack. It'll save you a bunch of headache and time and money at the track. So you'll see in this video that I've got the 2810.5 Hoosiers on it now, finally, and that's going to be kind of the same because we've ran the 2810.5 Mickeys on JP's truck, so we have a lot of data on that tire. I've been talking to some people that know a lot more about the Hoosier stuff than I do, and they say the Hoosiers are different, but they should be different in a good way. So kind of not, have an idea of what to expect, but also at the same time, anytime you go changing your starting line ratio, you're gonna be, back to kind of throwing darts at the dartboard a little bit on a new setup like this. I got some good people helping me out on this deal, so I'm not sure if they want to be mentioned yet on it or not, but definitely have some really knowledgeable help on the Hoosier tire deal. So we're gonna try some different things than what I've been preaching, just because after talking to these people, they think that there's a lot to be gained. So we're going to try a little bit of different stuff, but we're going to start off where we were before as far as dead hooking the tire. All the things that I've been talking about in all my previous videos, we're starting exactly like that. It's just anytime you go and change your tire combo, the tire is everything. So you're definitely going to be starting fresh to some degree. And then, as you've seen in the other videos, I've got the new aluminum intercooler piping on it now. I have got my aluminum drive shaft, rear drive shaft back in it. I've got AFR on it now. I've got pan vac. I've got a couple sensors that I didn't have before, so that'll be fun to look at that stuff to see. The main goal of me going to UCC is not to go to try to win anything. I'm actually going to enter Pro Street, mainly because I just want to basically treat this as a test session. That we're going to have 6 qualifiers. So there's not a lot of times where you can go to a 2-day event and get 6 test passes essentially. So I'm trying to take advantage of this time to basically work out the setup. Like I've talked about before, we're running nitrous on the truck this year. I've actually got the fuel quantity in the pump cut all the way back. So that way we can try to get the AFR where we think that we need it to be. So I'm going to just be basically running it to the first couple passes. I'm going to run it to probably about 100 foot and click it off. So that way we can check and make sure that, you know, we're not way out in left field on 60 foot. We're not way out in left field on EGT and AFR. Learn the new nitrous setup. Basically get it to do the first number on the ticket really good, and then go after it after that. So honestly, by the end of this event, if I made 1 or 2 full track passes, I'd be really ecstatic, but I'm not even necessarily hoping for that. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, great. Working on that first number on your time slip is everything. If you get the 60 foot down good and everything looks good and the chassis happy and the tires happy and you can start feeding it power, that's when you can start going fast. There's no reason to go out there and beat on your stuff if you don't have the first 60 foot figured out. It's not going to be fast anyways, and you just run the risk of burning something up, especially with a totally new combo, and there's no reason to do that. You don't learn anything from it. So we're mainly going out there, treat it as a test session, and so we can interact with the diesel community. This is the biggest diesel show of the year, so a lot of my customers will be there. A lot of people that are just fans of the YouTube channel will be there, fans of the truck. So it'll just be a nice experience to go and hang out and talk to people. We can talk about transmissions, we can talk about chassis, we can talk about anything you guys want to talk about. Come find me in the pit and I'd love to talk to you guys. The main purpose of me going to this is for a test session and for me to hang out with all you guys and talk transmissions or whatever you want to talk about. So you'll see in this first clip here, since I redid all this setup, and when I say redid all this setup, I'm just referring to the intercooler piping and adding that second spool jet and cutting the fuel back. That might not sound like a big deal, but it absolutely changes the way that you spool the truck. So this first setup here, like I like to preach with nitrous, I always like to start very conservative and baby step the jet sizes in. You don't really want to nitrous backfire if you can avoid that at all possible. It's nice to not do so. So I'd rather start with not spooling up and then take 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 tries to get to something that spools good than to throw a bunch of nitrous at it and backfire and possibly bend a valve or hurt a turbine wheel. There's a couple things you can do with a nitrous backfire you don't want to do. So in this first clip here, you'll see that it basically doesn't do anything because I have such little quantity of nitrous in it that and such low bottle pressure that it's basically, I don't even have enough nitrous in it to really even pep the motor up. On the second try here, I changed the jets around. I had an 18 jet on my first kit and a 24 jet on my second spool kit. So on this one, I put a 24 in the first one and a 30 in the second one. And I left them coming on, the 24s coming on at, yeah, that was 1500 engine RPM. And then the bigger one was coming on at 2100 engine RPM and then turning off at like 15 pounds of boost. So that made an improvement, but it did not make nearly the change that I thought it would make. Even though a 24 and a 30 doesn't sound like much of a jump over an 18 and a 24, when you're talking about area of a circle, that's quite a bit of difference there. and I noticed I had to put quite a bit more heat in my bottle to get the pressure where I need it, so that's a really good indication to me that the bottle is probably too low on nitrous. So I pulled it out and weighed it, and sure enough, it was basically out of nitrous. And keep in mind, when you're out of nitrous, it's only half of what the actual nitrous content inside is. So if you have a 15-pound bottle, 15 pounds worth of nitrous, once you get to about 7 pounds, you're out of good usable nitrous. And that's about where I was with it. So took it and swapped the bottle only, and then did another spool up, and this was the result of that. So now that I know I have good pressure, which the pressure on that one was a 913 PSI, which is perfect. Anything between 9 and 950 is great, and that's what I want to shoot for. And so we're finally getting somewhere with spool up, but now you can see that it still needs a lot more. It really needs kicked in the butt when the converter starts to get tight. So I went and I left the 24 alone, and I just moved it in 100 RPM sooner, so I brought that in at 1400, and then I put a 38 jet in the second spool kit to really try to ramp it in when that converter starts coupling. I moved it down to a 1900 RPM, so quite a bit more nitrous and a couple hundred RPM sooner, so that should really pep it up through that spot. You can look at the data and see where basically the EGT starts to go down, and anytime EGT goes down, that's a good indication that you're overfueling it. So trying to pep it through that spot where the converter's grabbing it and kind of making it overfuel. Okay, so that was much better. We're still not 100% where we need to be with this deal, but we're definitely way closer than we started, and we're a lot closer than we were last year. It made too much boost that time. It made about 30 pounds of boost. So last year I was actually just turning my one kit off when it would get to about 15 pounds of boost, and then that would make it level out at about 21. And I'd like to shoot for that 20 to 22 range, but I'm trying to leave the little nitrous jet on, so that way it has a little bit of pep, so when the pump goes wide open throttle, there's a little bit of nitrous there when all that fuel comes in to help clean up that poof of smoke that you see when it goes wide open. But in doing so, I need to actually mechanically cut back my staging limiter, which somebody asked about me doing a video on that. I will definitely do a video on that after UCC when I get some time and get caught up. I'll definitely do a video showing how I'm using this staging limiter on a P-pump truck. But so essentially I made that change, and I was just out of time for that day. The transmission was nice and warm. I try to be good about when I'm doing a spool up and practice what I preach. When I tell people, hey, don't do spool ups without fans, make sure you're putting fans on it, make sure you're not doing spool ups when the trans temp's 160 degrees, all that good stuff. But when you do 5 or 6 spool ups in a row, even 15 or 20 minutes between, the transmission's just gonna get heat soaked. So it was gonna take a couple hours before I felt comfortable doing any more. And I just needed to call it a day and move on to the next part of getting ready to go to UCC. So from this part on, there's a bunch of time-lapse stuff of me working. So if you don't really like time-lapse, I'm sorry. But if you like watching work get done quickly and it's satisfying to you like it is to me, then you might like all of these next parts here. So finally, my loading is all about done. Aside from a few little tiny things that I have left, I am finally done. I am going to go pack some clothes and go to sleep. Other than that, like always guys, I appreciate you watching. Hopefully I can put together some good content for you guys, some actual on-track stuff. I know a lot of you guys have been waiting on that, so look forward to what we can do here this weekend, people. So appreciate it, and we'll catch you on the next one.